Lau laughed as he saw Xavier's stunned face. What are you so surprised by? I'm sure you will achieve victories like this in your future as well. Xavier blushed and shrugged. Victories of this level appeared to be beyond his reach. Chance and luck were sure to play a factor in it as well. Silently, he wondered what level Lau must have been on if he was able to defeat a warlord. Xavier shook the thoughts out of his head. Maybe Lau would tell him at some point, or maybe he won't. In the long run, it wouldn't matter to Xavier anyways. What he should focus on right now is to nurture the purple flame and evolve his Q method with it. So what you're saying is that the doctor has a woeful poisonous body? Xavier's eyes swept across the doctor's sleeping body. Lau nodded while deep in thought. Yes, the fight I had against the woman with the woeful poisonous body left a deep impression on me. I won't bother and hide this fact. There is a rather unique training method that will help someone develop a woeful poisonous body. They won't need years of training. All one has to do is consume poison. Xavier finished with a dry mouth. Lau was startled. Oh yes, of course. Consume poison. As soon as they do so, their body will use a strange technique to convert the energy of the poison into a special type of Q energy. The more potent the poison, the more effective their training. That's why they don't need to endure any hard physical training to raise their strength. Naturally, there are a few downsides to this. Otherwise, everyone would do it, and it would not be such a rare technique. You see, the woeful poisonous body may be able to swiftly raise your strength through the consumption of poison. But in the end, poison is still poison, and the poison will accumulate inside the body. After reaching a certain point, the Q energy cannot suppress the poison any longer, and the poison will devour the body. Then the practitioner will die, while suffering a sort of agony that I could not possibly imagine. Those terrifying side effects are not worth it. I can guarantee you that. With some pity, Xavier looked at the peacefully sleeping doctor. Is there no way to prevent this? He asked. Lau shrugged. People have to pay their prices when it comes to gaining power. No one expects to have such power handed to them on a silver platter. I am sure she knew what she was getting herself into. Xavier remembered their last conversation, back as the doctor asked if they would still be friends in the future. I guess you're right, but if she would stop consuming poison, then she could avoid such a terrifying fate, right? He turned around to face Lau. The old man nodded. In theory, this should be possible. Unfortunately, those with a woeful poisonous body won't be convinced to stop so easily. The more potent a poison, the more alluring it is to them. They are willing to take any risk necessary to gain power. In a way, poison to them is what a heavenly flame is for an alchemist. After all, facing the risk of being burnt alive is no less insane than dealing with deadly poisons. If you don't understand why she won't stop taking poison, then I will have to ask you, would you stop right in front of a heavenly flame and walk away to not risk your life? Xavier bit his lips. Both he and Lau knew the answer to this. Xavier cursed himself, feeling like a hypocrite. Why did he feel so bad about her risking her life if he would do exactly the same? I understand what you were trying to tell me, yet I can't help but feel awful. Xavier sighed. Of course you feel awful. You are a good friend to her, and she is to you. It is normal to worry about friends if they are acting recklessly. Lau shook his head with a chuckle. But I am afraid it is too late to help her now. If she would not have consumed the poison, the woeful poisonous body would not have come into effect. However, once consumed, even by mistake, there is no way of reversing it. In summary, we are too late. Too late? But if she started it when she found the poison book, then shouldn't she be in the early stages of training? There should be something we should be able to do, right? Xavier lost his composure. He could not leave her to such a terrifying fate. He had to at least try and talk some sense into her. Lau shook his head with a sad smile. Funny how you're the one saying this. I don't recall talking you out of obtaining a heavenly flame, did I? Xavier rolled his eyes. That's not... Okay, look, I get it. Maybe that is exactly the same, but she is still my friend. Couldn't we at least help her? Can you not refine a medicine to control some of the poison in her body? You claim to be more powerful than the Pill King, so prove it. Lau did not pay any attention to Xavier's words. He knew it was the rage in him speaking, not to mention the fear for his friend's life. His eyes swept over the doctor and then stopped at the rainbow-colored scroll on the doctor's chest. Lau took it carefully. He made sure not to touch the doctor. He opened the scroll and scanned through the various type of poison formulas on it before stopping at the last paragraph. With a deep sigh, Lau handed it over to Xavier. Woeful poisonous body is a strange type of training that enables its user to swallow poison to increase their strength. There are several ways to recognize if the woeful poisonous body has been achieved. These signs include a thin line consisting of 7 colors. With the intensity of the poison, this line will grow. Once this line extends to the heart, the woeful poisonous body is at its strongest potential. During this time, the owner of the woeful poisonous body will feel the pain of various poisons taking their toll on the body. Below this paragraph was a detailed list of all the damage the woeful poisonous body could cause. Xavier skipped through them. The first few already made his stomach turn. How can you read all these side effects and still go for it? That's insane. Did she have a death wish? He uttered. Lau sighed. I don't know. Maybe you can convince her to find a heavenly flame instead. That's much safer, isn't it? Will feel the pain of various poisons taking their toll on the body. Below this paragraph was a detailed list of all the damage the woeful poisonous body could cause. Xavier skipped through them. The first few already made his stomach turn. How can you read all these side effects and still go for it? That's insane. Did she have a death wish? He uttered. Lau sighed. I don't know. Maybe you can convince her to find a heavenly flame instead. That's much safer, isn't it? Xavier groaned at the old man's sarcastic teasing. Yeah, I got the point the first time you brought it up. Thank you. But if she continues in this manner, she will end up as a vessel full of poison. However, from what is written on the scroll, isn't someone with a woeful poisonous body immune to poisons? Why is she unconscious? The poison was too potent. Just like that time when you took too much of the birth essence and... Lau stopped. Oh, please, can you stop that already? I got it, thanks, sighed Xavier. Lau shook his head at the teenager's outburst. She must have temporarily fainted because of the potency, but I am sure that she will wake up soon. Speaking of which, I should go back to hiding before she wakes up. And with this, Lau disappeared into the ancient ring. Xavier sat down near the table, and he kept watching the doctor. She did mention that she wanted to become an alchemist, something Xavier had already guessed when he first met her. Becoming an alchemist was sure to bring fortune and prestige. Most physicians were people who desired to become alchemists, but lacked the required attributes, much like the doctor sleeping in front of him. With her woeful poisonous body developing, she would likely end up as a poison grandmaster, causing terror wherever she went. Once she reached that stage, she was doomed to live a lonely life, much in the way that she already predicted. No longer would anyone dare to come into close contact with her. No one would want to have a cordial conversation with her or be in a relationship with her. Upsetting her would be a certain death sentence. After a while, Xavier could see the doctor's eyes twitch. He straightened up. Is she waking up? The doctor's hand moved slowly over her mouth, wiping off the black powder on her lips. Her eyes began to tear up. A moment later, she pulled the blanket over her face and began to sob. I can't believe I failed to control myself again. Maybe I should kill myself. It would be less bothersome. Xavier's heart sank at these words. He stood up and walked up to her, placing his hand gently on her back. Feeling that someone was touching her, the doctor pushed the blanket away. The shock was in her red eyes. When did you come in? Xavier forced a smile. I entered when you were still unconscious. The shock in her eyes grew. She tightened the grip around the black powder in her hand, hiding it in her pocket. Did you touch me? She asked. What? Touch you? What sort of guy do you take me for? No, I did not touch you, don't worry, he voiced. The doctor sighed in relief. She tugged her legs toward her chest and lowered her chin onto her knees. Sorry, I shouldn't have said it like that. It's just that there was some problem with the poison I made. Xavier stared at her. He knew it wasn't his business, and part of him wanted to respect that. But another part of him was worried about what she was getting herself into. Can you not abandon this stupid idea? He suggested. The doctor was confused for a moment. What do you even know? I have read the scroll, and I saw that you consumed poison. I might not be any genius, but I can connect two dots when they are right in front of me, he replied. The doctor bit on her bottom lip. Then you know about the woeful poisonous body. That means you are also afraid of me now, aren't you? Xavier shook his head. Gently, he patted her back, much to the doctor's surprise. She looked at him in confusion. Xavier replied with a warm smile. If I would be scared of you, I would have run away. But we have gone through so much together, and we are so much alike. How could I abandon you, or be scared of you? Once more, tears appeared in the doctor's eyes. With a smile, she said, That means you are still going to eat the food that I'll cook? Any time, he answered. A feeling of warmth overcame the doctor. She wiped away her tears and took a deep breath. Thank you, Xavier. As long as you still consider me a friend, I will help you and remain a helpful doctor, even if the rest of this world will fear me. The days after Xavier found the doctor in her unconscious state were peaceful and quiet. Xavier did not distance himself from the doctor afterwards, which she was happy about. Now she trusted Xavier with everything. He did not tell her this, but he was surprised by her acting so trusting all of a sudden. To him, it was not that big of a deal. Then again, Lau has been dealing with poison masters and woeful poisonous bodies before, so Xavier was not too worried about accidentally upsetting her and unleashing her wrath. Day by day, he went to proceed with his training. The purple flame inside his Q cyclone grew stronger as he persevered through it. The birth essence did help a lot to increase his energy and speed things up, something he was very grateful for. Usually, he went to the cave to get some rest and hide from the sun once he was done with the training. But today, Xavier decided to do something else. He stood up, took a deep breath, and aimed at the sun with his open hand. Up here, he called. The familiar purple flame arose on Xavier's hand. It did not only cover his entire hand, but his forearm as well. Xavier's heart began to race in excitement. He tightened his fist and ferociously struck the ground. A blast of fire burst out of his fist. Numerous thin cracks appeared where the flame hit. They spread to the mountain wall. Awesome! Did you see that? Xavier asked. Lau manifested himself outside of the ring. He seemed unimpressed. Yes, I did see it, though it is hardly passable. Unfortunately, you have reached your limit. If you continue with your training from this point, this will backfire soon. Xavier let the criticism slide. I did notice that I'm about to reach my limit. Controlling the flame inside the cyclone is not as easy as it used to be. You know what this means. You need to refine the flame and devour it, informed Lau. Sounds great. When can we start? Replied Xavier. Don't be so impatient. We will start tomorrow afternoon. There are a few things you need to prepare first, stated Lau. Xavier raised an eyebrow. Prepare what? Evolving the Q method is not as easy as you think. You cannot swallow the flame and hope for the best, and the purple flame might be far inferior to a heavenly flame, but with your current strength, it will still provide a challenge to you. You need to prepare 2 different pills to stay safe. One pill is referred to as the Pathway Protection Pill, and the other one as the Icy Heart Pill. Under normal circumstances, it would be difficult for a level 1 alchemist to refine them, but since you already possess the purple flame, it should be possible to create a flame hot enough to make refining these pills possible. The Pathway Protection Pill is needed to keep your Q pathways protected, as you must have guessed by its name. It will keep your pathways protected as you pass the purple flame through them. You see, unlike the gentle Q energy, the energy of the purple flame is violent. Forcing it through your pathways without protection will cause irreversible damage. Not to mention, the violent energy will try to gain control over your mind. You want to avoid this, Lau explained. Hearing the seriousness in Lau's voice, Xavier nodded to whatever he said, not daring to interrupt him. Seeing that Xavier was paying close attention, Lau continued. I will give you the knowledge to refine those 2 pills. You should be able to find all the herbs that are needed in this valley, but you will also need a level 2 monster heart with a wood attribute, and a level 2 monster heart with ice attribute. As he finished explaining, Lau placed a finger on Xavier's forehead. A flood of new information entered his brain. Once he had all the information, Xavier went through the list of ingredients. 1 level 2 monster heart with wood attribute, and 1 level 2 monster heart with ice attribute. Oh man, that's going to be annoying. The last time I killed a level 2 monster, it took me a lot of effort. I have 1 level 2 monster heart with a wood attribute in my storage ring, but none with an ice attribute. Looks like I have to hunt for monsters again, he sighed. There were other things he wanted to do with his time than hunt monsters. It looked as if there was no way around it. Xavier climbed out of the cave. He went to the doctor, who was quietly studying the poisons on her scroll, and explained why he had to leave for a while. She immediately got worried. A level 2 monster heart with ice attribute? Really? Do you want me to come along and help? Just in case you were getting yourself into trouble. I don't think that would be a good idea. If anything happened to you, I wouldn't forgive myself, and with my current strength, I can't promise that I would be able to save you, Xavier stated. The doctor sighed as she heard Xavier's explanation. She did not think that she would need saving, but she did not go against his wishes to hunt for monsters alone. All right, I understand, but please take this on the way. She pulled out a small bag from her pocket and handed it to Xavier. In it was a small black pill. I'm sure you know what it is. She winked at him with a smile. Xavier laughed. I think I do, thank you. He gratefully took the poison and put it in his storage ring. Directly afterwards, he rushed to the mountainside. There, he stepped off the ground, shooting his body upward to the nearest peak of the mountain. He could still see the small figure of the doctor. He waved goodbye, though he was unsure if she saw this or not. Xavier took a few steps before releasing some of his Q energy to activate his wings. He could feel them becoming stronger every time he used them. They were not as pitch black as they used to be anymore. A purple gleam of energy was around them. There, atop the valley, Xavier raised his head and looked around. Dark green trees spread out like an ocean, occasionally forming a wave whenever the wind blew over the leaves and branches. Many miles ahead of him were more mountains. The higher ones had their peak covered by snow. It was a majestic sight. The higher mountains must have been far, far away. Xavier thought it was surreal to see the snow on their high peaks while he was scorching in the hot sun. Sweat was running down his forehead. He would have preferred to do some training in cooling snow right now. He flapped his eagle wings and jumped down. It did not take him long to reach the mountain range of monsters. The difficult part would be to find a level 2 monster with an ice attribute. Finding a specific monster in this huge mountain range was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Although Lau had repeatedly said that he would not help Xavier out unless his life would depend on it. After flying and running through the mountain range for a few hours, he gave in. Quickly, he manifested himself next to Xavier as he was flying mid-air. There is a level 2 monster with an ice attribute below us, but there appears to be some problem. Are you going to take a look or should we continue the search? Lau pointed at a spot below them. There was a glade between the trees. Xavier thought for a moment. Let's check it out. I'm getting tired of searching. He flapped his wings, aiming near the glade where Lau pointed. While doing so, he popped an energy recovery pill into his mouth. As Xavier landed on one of the high trees, he could hear yelling and screaming from the glade near him. Master, do you hear that? What's going on? He asked. Lau went back inside the ancient ring. His voice echoed through Xavier's mind. There are mercenaries hunting for monsters. It looks like they accidentally attracted a level 2 monster with an ice attribute, and its attack took them by surprise. Xavier looked down through the tree branches to the glade. Dozens of mercenaries fled the scene. Behind them were 2 level 2 monsters, chasing relentlessly after them. None of the mercenaries were above the rank of a young master, so of course they could not stand a fight against any level 2 monster. All they could do was run for their lives. Xavier scanned over them. It was hard to make out every detail from this distance, but they appeared to be familiar. Suddenly, it dawned on him. The Bloodbath mercenaries. I've met some of them before, he muttered. Just as he realized this, a familiar voice screamed out from below. Xavier turned his head to the source of the scream. Amongst the group was a young girl, who tripped over a large branch and fell. Xavier recognized her. It was Ling. The level 2 monster was directly behind her. It opened its large mouth, 3 rows of teeth and 2 tongues were in it. On its large ape-like head were multiple red eyes. It was a fearsome sight. Xavier furrowed his brows. His mind was racing. He did not like her, but letting her be mauled by a beast might have been too cruel. Should I do something? How? Even if I would jump down, that beast is way too close and too powerful. But perhaps I could... Before Xavier was able to finish his thoughts or come up with a plan, a new voice yelled out, "Get lost, you fucking monster!" A sturdy human figure shot out from the dense forest. In his hand was a huge broadsword. Q energy formed around it. He hacked at the wrists of the level 2 monster. Both monsters jumped backwards in surprise. Xavier was stunned. What? Who is that guy? Does he have a death wish? Ling answered Xavier's question as she screamed through the glade again. Uncle Baizhu! Ling, step back! The man named Baizhu did not turn around. He gave his order while keeping his focus on the 2 monsters in front of him. There was a bitterness in his voice. Xavier had a fair guess that he felt responsible for the mess the mercenaries found themselves in. Judging by his appearance and demeanor, he had to be a true master, although most likely not a high-ranking one. He seemed to be too young for that. Ling did as Baizhu told her, and ran to the group of mercenaries that were nearby. Commander, what do we do? A middle-aged man asked as he walked away from the group of mercenaries, and stepped closer to Baizhu. Zin, reform the formation. Don't panic. We can't afford to be separated. It would get us all killed, Baizhu explained. Uncle Baizhu, you won't be able to kill 2 level 2 monsters on your own. Fear was in Ling's voice. Ling was about to run back to Baizhu when a woman grabbed her shoulder, stopping her. Don't disturb our commander, she ordered. Ling turned around and looked at the woman who stopped her. But Samga, we need to help Uncle Baizhu, exclaimed Ling. The dark-skinned woman named Samga wore a black tight leather blouse, reaching down to her belly button. A long dagger was attached to each of her legs. She frowned and shook her head. We would be killed off one by one if we don't reform our formation. Now, follow the commander's order and stop making things worse for us for 5 minutes. You keep getting us into trouble by acting like a reckless brat. Our friends almost lost their lives earlier because of you, she scolded. Ling's face turned red, but she did not dare to say anything. Silently, the mercenaries who overheard Samga scolding Ling thanked her for saying what everyone had been thinking. Samga, if anything would happen, bring Ling along and run for safety. We will buy you some time. A young man in white clothes went over to Samga and Ling. Xavier recognized him too. It was Lion. Samga was unfazed by his obvious attempts to impress her by playing savior. I won't do anything without our commander's orders. Besides, I am ranking higher than you. I am not sure why you think it would be a good idea to fight in my stead, she blurted. Then Lion blushed and hastily nodded. I understand. Ling rolled her eyes. Secretly, she was glad to hear Samga's cold and matter-of-fact reply. Zin swiftly reorganized the mercenaries. More than 10 of them rushed out, heading for one of the level 2 monsters. The huge sharp claws of the monster slashed down. An icy energy shot out, knocking against some of the mercenaries' shields. A thin layer of ice formed on them. This ice was a lot colder than normal ice, so many mercenaries dropped their shields. The iciness on their hands caused a burning sensation, like thousands of needles pricking them. Hold it! Young masters with earth attributes, go to the front. Those with fire type, attack at the monster's weakest points. Zin called out as he saw the fear creeping up into the mercenaries' hearts. The eyes of the monster turned red. Without holding back, it went on its killing spree. A few mercenaries could not jump aside in time. They were smashed against the trees and coughed up blood. As quickly as they could, they retreated. Commander Baizhu, we cannot hold them off for much longer. Zin turned pale as he saw the massacre. The mercenaries were unable to stand their ground against this force for just a minute. A snow-white layer formed on the ground in the area where the monsters stood. White fog emitted from it. This fog would freeze anything. If one of the mercenaries was exposed to the fog for too long, they would run into the risk of their blood freezing. Commander Baizhu, meanwhile, struggled to fight against the second monster. He hit the beast with his sword, but all it did was force the monster a few steps back. Baizhu suddenly raised his head and yelled towards the top of a tree. Friend, all of us make a living in the mountain range. Please, could you help us? The mercenaries looked at each other in confusion. Not long after Baiju cried for help, they could see a young man in black clothes jumping down from the tree like a cat. The mercenaries were stunned as Xavier suddenly jumped down the tree in front of them. I can help you, but if any of those monsters have a heart, he started. It belongs to you. There was no hesitation in Commander Baiju's reply. This was his and his men's last chance. He needed every bit of help he could get. Xavier laughed. Very straightforward. I appreciate it. You know, I ran into a few of your men a while ago. Looks like I can finally repay their hospitality. Meanwhile, the monster aimed at Samga. She stood her ground, not moving an inch as the giant beast pounced at her. Suddenly, a cloud of dust scattered into the air as Xavier leapt in front of the beast. On his back was the broadsword ruler. Shall Xavier? Zin's jaw dropped. He immediately recognized the heavy item on the young man's back. Xavier turned around and laughed. Zin, I hope you're doing well. Could be better, to be honest, but let's chat later. His face was filled with unrestrained joy. Xavier nodded with a smile and lifted his leg, stomping on the ground. His body shot into the air, and he landed on the left side of the monster. Quickly, he reached for the broadsword ruler on his back. With a tight grip, he forced it through the air. It smashed against the forehead of the monster. The force smashed the monster backwards. The monster came to a halt as it crashed into a large tree. Commander Baiju cried out in joy. Samga, who was near Xavier, watched with shock on her face. She did not expect this young slim man to possess such a level of strength. Not far away, Ling kept staring at Xavier. A glint of admiration was in her eyes. The monster got up again. Fury was written on its face. The humiliation stung the monster deeply. An icy fog began to shroud its body. As it opened its mouth, a few of the sharp, long teeth shot toward Xavier. They looked like icicles. Seeing them shooting towards him, Xavier waved the broadsword ruler to block them off. On the broadsword ruler, a thin layer of ice formed. He regretted his earlier thoughts about wanting to play in the snow. The iciness burned his skin. At least it was something different from being burnt by fire all the time. Despite the pain, Xavier smiled as a purple flame rose in his palm. It melted the thin layer of ice on the broadsword ruler. The monster was furious. All its attacks so far were futile. Suddenly, the icy fog around it grew denser. A moment later, it solidified into a layer of icy armor. It covered the entire monster, making it look like an ice sculpture under the sunlight. The beast moved from its upright posture onto all four legs and charged at Xavier like a tank. Xavier steadied his breath. He raised his head to watch the monster charge at him. The tremendous weight and power of the monster made the earth shake beneath its feet. Xavier could feel the vibration on the ground. He let go of the broadsword ruler and tightened his hands into fists. The purple flame encompassed his entire forearm. A gust of cold wind came from the monster. It was getting close. As it was only a few steps away from Xavier, he stomped onto the ground with all his force, shooting high up into the air. Above the monster, he aimed at its head. Octane Blast! A terrifying force smashed at the monster's head. The ice armor was melted away by the purple flame, leaving a large spot where the monster's head was exposed. Xavier used his other fist to hit the exposed spot with all his strength. The monster fell onto the ground. Its red eyes were wide open, even after its death. Xavier looked at it in disgust. It could not be helped, he thought, and cut it open. He reached deep inside the beast's chest. Disgust filled Xavier's heart. Its organs were slimy and cold. He kept digging around inside the monster. With a disappointed sigh, he withdrew his hand eventually. Nothing, he muttered. Xavier bit his lips and wiped the blood off his hands by brushing it against some grass. As he stood up and straightened his clothes, he turned to the mercenaries who kept watching him. Looks like I didn't get lucky this time. There's nothing at all, he stated. The mercenaries needed a moment to recover from their shock. Staring at Xavier's empty hands, Zin shook his head. That's too bad. Maybe you get lucky after killing the second monster. Everyone, let's aid our commander to slay the other monster, he exclaimed. The mercenaries straightened up. They tightened the grips on their weapons and began to swarm the monster in front of Baiju. Xavier placed the broadsword ruler on his back. He leaned against a tree as he watched the fight continue. The strength of the purple flame exceeded his expectations. He was satisfied with the result, although he did know that part of his success was due to his elemental advantage. If this monster would have been a monster with a fire attribute, the fight would not have been over so quickly. While everyone was busy, Xavier took an energy recovery pill from his storage ring and swallowed it. Man, if this lousy Q method won't evolve soon, I'm going to lose my mind. I can't afford to swallow these pills for the rest of my life, he spoke to himself. He was interrupted as Ling stepped forwards. Xavier, thank you for helping us. Are you all right? Xavier, who remembered Ling's initial attitude towards him, did not want to have any chat with her. I'm fine, he replied. Ling flushed red. She opened her mouth, but appeared to be at a loss for words. The atmosphere was tense. She knew what sort of impression she must have left. Samga interrupted the tense atmosphere as she saw Xavier's hand. You're bleeding. Need some bandage? I'm good, thanks. The indifference did not bother Samga. She liked people that were up front and did not bother wasting her time with boring chit-chat. She gave Xavier an understanding nod and went back to the other mercenaries. Moments later, a victorious cry was to be heard. Baiju finally delivered the death blow to the second monster. His mercenaries cheered. The loud noises caused a bunch of birds that were nesting in the trees nearby to fly away. Baiju ordered a few of the mercenaries next to him to search the carcass of the monster for a heart. Afterward, he led Xin and the others to Xavier. Xavier, I've heard so much about you. I wish we had met under better circumstances. Thank you for your help today. It was very much needed. Xavier laughed a little. Heard much about me. Probably nothing good. I imagine my reputation in the town of beasts is not the best after what happened. Baiju waved Xavier's concerns off with a laugh. No, not at all. No one is talking about you poorly. All they talk about is that incredible teenager who single-handedly destroyed the company of the Wolfhead's mercenaries. Admittedly, Baiju had doubts about these rumors. Having a teenager take down a mercenary company and kill their leader sounded like a work of fiction. However, after seeing Xavier's fight with the monster, all these doubts vanished into thin air. Xavier raised his head and stared at the sky behind the branches for a moment. With a sigh, he eventually turned back to look at Baiju. I'm glad I was able to help, but I need to leave. There was no heart with an ice attribute in the monster, so I need to continue searching. I would love to stay and chat, but you know how it is. Xavier was about to turn around and leave when Baiju stopped him. I'm sorry we're not able to compensate you for all the trouble. If you want to, we could give you the heart that we found in some other monster today. It has a level 1 wood attribute. Xavier shook his head. I appreciate it, but that won't help me. I really need a level 2 heart that has an ice attribute. It, was requested by someone, so I can't show up with anything else. Samga suddenly appeared next to them. She hesitated for a moment, but then reached behind her neck to open a silver necklace she was wearing. She let the pendant that was hanging on it slide into her hand. On the pendant hung an icy pearl, shaped like a tear. This is a monster heart from a level 2 snow snail. Keep it as a reward. Carelessly, she threw it towards Xavier, who caught it mid-air. Baiju was stunned. Samga, well, if you offer this out of your own will, then I suppose it is all right. As per our company's rules, you should not give away personal items as payment. Once we are back in the city, I will compensate you. Samga brushed him off. It's not that big of a deal. After all, if he wouldn't have intervened, we would have lost half of our men. Xavier did not hide his joy at the monster's heart in his hands. He took a respectful bow in front of Samga and said, I really appreciate it, but if it is true what Baiju said, then I would feel wrong to accept it as payment when it goes against your company's rules. How about... He knitted his brows, thinking for a while. Eventually, Xavier flipped his fingers, and a small bottle appeared in his hand. He tossed the pill to Samga. This. There are 5 energy recovery pills inside. I think that's a fair trade, he added. Samga initially did not want to accept whatever he offered her, but as the words energy recovery pills entered her ears, her eyes widened. She took the bottle without complaint. Medicinal pills? Baiju and the others were startled as well. In the town of Beasts and the nearby areas, they seldom saw pills that came from alchemists. Seeing this teenager pull out a bottle that contained 5 pills was like something out of a fairy tale. Before the others could process what just happened and start to ask any questions, Xavier bid them farewell. I would love to spend more time with you all, but I need to get some more stuff done. Thank you for all your help. Goodbye, everyone. Xavier took a few deep bows as he backed off into the dense forest, leaving behind a bunch of confused mercenaries that exchanged questioning looks. Samga kept staring at the bottle in her hand, keeping the bottle slightly away from her body. She opened it as carefully as she could. Part of her expected this to be an elaborate prank of sorts. Perhaps he lied to her, and there were no pills inside at all. Perhaps there was poison inside instead. After being a mercenary for many years, Samga grew cautious, believing everything someone promised, especially if it sounded like it was too good to be true, could have been a death sentence. However, much to her surprise, as soon as she opened the bottles, she could see the 5 smooth pills. With a bit of hesitation, she took a sniff. It had a calming and healing medical scent. There was no doubt that Xavier was honest. Samga shook her head in disbelief. These 5 pills were worth a fortune, much more than her old necklace. Just one of those pills could bring her 10 times the amount of gold coins the monster heart was worth. Again, she shook her head before staring at Baiju, who had a similar expression. Can you believe this? She asked. Baiju also shook his head. No, and I don't think anyone we would tell about this would believe us either, he replied. A moment later, he burst into deep laughter. Man, I wanted to ask him to join us. I completely forgot as he pulled those out. But who am I kidding? With this sort of talent and wealth, he would not want to stay to work for our small mercenary company. If he has come to the mountain range of monsters to train, and keeps pills like these with him, then he must come from a powerful and wealthy family. We couldn't offer him anything he would be interested in. He seemed to be very interested in the monster heart. Samga wondered and thought why he was so interested in a level 2 monster heart. Baiju nodded. Yeah, he did mention that someone requested it. Do you think he works for an alchemist? Perhaps he is even a disciple of an alchemist. Samga waved him off. Even if he is, that's none of our business. Should we head back and get something to drink? Now that sounds like a plan. I do need a drink after all this fighting. Baiju waved his hand, gesturing all the mercenaries to follow him back to the town of beasts. On their way back, they sang cheerful songs of triumph, and although they did not possess the wealth or power Xavier had, they enjoyed their simple lives as mercenaries. Xavier dashed through the dense forest. Only after taking several twists and turns for a good hour did he stop. He stretched his arms out. His back trembled slightly as the tattoos grew into purple eagle wings. The Q energy in his body circulated a few times, pumping a huge amount of energy into the wings. With only a few flaps, Xavier levitated off the ground. The wings' power kept increasing. Even after a point where Xavier was quite satisfied, they kept getting more powerful. Not that he would complain about that. The only downside was how much Q energy the wings consumed, and how little he was able to store in his Q cyclone. During the flight back to the valley, Xavier had to consume 3 energy recovery pills. It took him a while to locate the small valley. It was not an easy place to find. The only reason Xavier was able to locate it at all was because of the specific way the mountains looked that bordered the valley. Their peaks and cliffs formed different patterns, some of them more recognizable than others. For example, one of the peaks looked like the face of an old man with a beard. Directly under this mountain, Xavier landed, only a few feet away from the cave where he trained. From there, he made his way back to the shed on foot. As he reached the shed, he was greeted by the doctor. A look of relief was on her face. "It's good to see you in one piece. Had a successful trip?" she asked. Xavier smiled at her. "It's good to see you too. The trip was great. I ran into some mercenaries I knew on the way. They had a level 2 monster heart with an ice attribute with them. I traded it for some old stuff I had with me." "Oh, really?" The doctor was surprised to hear that. She shook her head and laughed. "So you were able to find the monster heart without having to get your hands dirty? You lucky bastard." Xavier joined her laughter. "Yeah, more or less. I still need to do some training, though. Is it okay if I come back later for dinner?" "Sure. I wanted to wait for you anyway before cooking. A different kind of mushroom will begin to grow this season, and I am looking forward to using it in a new recipe." The doctor threw a glance at Xavier and grinned. "Not that sort of recipe, if that's what you're worried about," she laughed. "I wasn't worried about it until you told me I shouldn't be worried about it," Xavier teased her. "But if it's as good as the last recipe, I'll take the risk," he added. Xavier was not kidding. She was a great chef. Then again, she was very familiar with all sorts of herbs and mushrooms, so it made sense that she would know how to use them for more than just brewing poisons. Xavier said goodbye and made his way back to the cave. On the way there, he gathered all the necessary herbs. As Lau mentioned, most of them were found in the small valley. It truly was a paradise for herbs. Xavier understood why the doctor would want to stay here. Once inside the cave, he sat down and crossed his legs. He took the cauldron out of his storage ring and placed it carefully in front of him. He then placed all the needed ingredients next to him. Again and again, he checked them. He did not want them to have any flaws that could ruin the refinement process. One needs to remember that the success rate of refining a pill was never 100%. There was always the risk of failing. Xavier did not want to be careless about this process. He also did not want to search for more monster hearts. Maybe Lau was right. Maybe he really was too impatient, Xavier thought. Just as he was thinking about Lau, the figure of the old man came floating out of the ancient ring and manifested himself near Xavier. He revised the whole process with Xavier and then gave his okay for Xavier to start. Finally, Xavier rubbed his hands together. He placed one of them on the fire outlet of the cauldron and moved his vision inside his body. There, he focused on the purple flame within the Q cyclone. He needed to retrieve it. The flame was surrounded by Q energy as it swiftly passed through his Q pathways and entered the cauldron. Once inside, it began to burn steadily in the middle. Through the glass on the top of the cauldron, Xavier could watch the flame and the ingredients. He pressed his hands against the cauldron. As the temperature began to rise, he turned to Lau with questioning eyes. Lau gave him an approving nod, making Xavier smile with pride. Silently, Lau praised Xavier for being able to raise the flame and placing it into the cauldron so quickly. Only a month ago, this task would have taken Xavier several minutes. Now he did it in a few seconds, as if he had done this every day for a decade. Lau kept observing Xavier's moves. At first, Xavier grabbed a dark green plant aside from him. This plant was called Evergreen. The warm energy within its leaves would help him to protect his Q paths. Xavier glanced at the plant for a while, taking mental notes of its appearance. It had thick oval leaves and a hard stem that had a few little thorns. Despite the blooming flower on the top, it did not emit much of a scent. When Xavier took a sniff, all he could smell was grass. He hesitated for a moment as he was about to place the evergreen into the cauldron. Immediately, as it entered the cauldron, the purple flame pounced on it. Within a second, the dark green leaves turned brown. Xavier focused his energy on suppressing the temperature of the flame. The flame was not supposed to be too hot or too cold. If it was too hot, it would burn the plant, and if it was too cold, the process would take many hours until something would happen at all. Xavier's soul performance was strong. He did get the temperature right on the first try, much to Lau's surprise. He did not bother to mention it, but the first time he refined the evergreen himself, it took him at least 10 trials to get it right without burning the plant to ash. He kept watching the plant as Xavier grilled it inside the cauldron. A dark green liquid formed on the surface of its leaves. When the last drop was forced out, the remains of the plant turned into black soot and sank to the bottom of the cauldron. "Not bad, not bad," Lau murmured. "You got a lot of the liquid out. Even a level 2 alchemist would not get such good results on their first try," he praised. Xavier smiled and felt how his cheeks turned hot. He tried to return his focus to the refining process. Waving slowly around the liquid, Xavier sucked it from within the cauldron and stored it in a small bottle. He then labeled it and put it aside before refining the other ingredients. It did not take him too long. After 2 hours, he had obtained 3 other liquids and a pale green powder from the other ingredients. He only burned 12 plants until he got it right. That does sound like a lot, but for a beginner alchemist, that was not too bad. Besides, as long as he was in the valley, Xavier did not worry about running out of ingredients. In any other place, this could have ended up getting expensive. Xavier shuddered at the thought of how much the auction house would charge for one of those plants, and their prices were not too high, especially not when compared to a high-end pharmacy in Wutan City. Lau kept watching Xavier with a satisfied expression. Since Xavier was refining this type of pill for the first time, Lau was very patient. As Xavier was done, he reached for an energy recovery pill and put it into his mouth. Refining the ingredients demanded a lot more Q energy than he expected. Lau could only shake his head. No wonder Xavier was so insistent on evolving his Q method. He has been refining the ingredients for barely an hour before running out of energy, and this current pill he was working on was only a level 2 pill. If Xavier had refined a level 3 or level 4 pill, he would have had to take a handful of energy recovery pills to not pass out from exhaustion. It took a while before Xavier opened his eyes again. Dark circles were around them. He then lined up all the ingredients and flicked his fingers. A white monster heart that emitted chilly air appeared in his hand. Xavier took a deep breath. He could not mess this up. He was really not in the mood to go for another hunting trip. Carefully, he entered the monster's heart. As soon as it was in the cauldron, icy steam began to evaporate, as the heart did its best to avoid being destroyed. Sheets of white fog began to seep through the lid of the cauldron. Lau waved his hands to get the fog away. Xavier was too concentrated to notice any of this. His entire focus was on grilling the heart. This required a lot of energy as well, so Xavier took another energy recovery pill. The icy sheet of the heart broke and fell into the bottom of the cauldron where it evaporated. Not long after, the heart turned into powder and sunk onto the ground. The only thing left was the core of the heart, that now had the form of a white paste that drifted within the cauldron. Some of the tension left Xavier's body as he saw that he was successful. He sucked the white paste out and stored it in another small bottle. He then reached for a few bottles that were lined up next to him and poured all the refined ingredients into the cauldron. The purple flame began to wrap itself around all the powders and pastes. Immediately they fused. As they merged, a pill shape formed slowly. Its surface was uneven and had patches of green and purple. It had not much in common with the other pills Xavier had refined so far. He gave Lau a questioning look, but Lau replied with a smile and a nod. As Xavier saw this, he went back to working on the weird-looking pill. Holding his breath, he added the final ingredient, the paste of the monster's heart. Xavier controlled it, and the paste wrapped around the pill. At the same time, he suppressed the temperature of the flame some more. He did not want to burn the pill to ash. It had the right temperature to slowly broil the pill. This final step took about half an hour. Once he was done and removed the fire, a small white round pill was left floating within the cauldron. Xavier grinned. He removed the pill and placed it inside a bottle. Realizing he had finally done it, he laughed loudly. "It worked! The path protection pill was a success!" Lau hummed. "Yes, not too bad. There were some minor things I would have done differently, but since this was your first time, I'm not going to nitpick. Good job. You should get some rest before refining the icy heart pill. Since you managed to refine this one, the second one should be easier." Xavier agreed and cleaned up the ingredients and bottles around him. Once he was done, he took another energy recovery pill. It took about half an hour until he restored his energy fully. As he opened his eyes, the cauldron was still in front of him. Xavier took a deep breath and refined the icy heart pill. Much like Lau predicted, refining the second pill was a lot easier. It did not even take him an hour to refine it. The icy heart pill was a level 1 pill, so it was perfect for a beginner like Xavier to refine. As he was done, Xavier still had some Q energy left. He removed the icy heart pill and placed it inside a small crystal bottle with a satisfied smile. Lau glanced at the dark sky outside the cave. Once Xavier was done, he turned to him. Now would be a perfect time to swallow the purple flame. If you swallow it during the day, the sun would amplify its strength, which might make things difficult. Can you keep going? Xavier nodded, though the large rings around his tired eyes gave away how exhausted he was. Sure, I'm a bit tired, but I won't fall asleep. All right, that is good. And how many energy recovery pills do you have with you? Lau asked. 18, Xavier replied. Lau nodded. That should be enough. After you have swallowed the pill, you should consume one whenever you feel your energy running out. It won't be good if you suddenly run out of Q energy in the middle of the process. Xavier understood. He did not want to fool around with his life. All right, to be honest, I'm also interested to see how much the flame mantra can evolve with the purple flame. I've never done anything like this before. In any case, it won't directly leap into the XX class. That would be like jumping from the Earth to the Moon. However, it might evolve into a higher level of the same class. Only time will tell, stated Lau. After Lau gave his okay, Xavier looked at the two bottles in front of him. He closed his eyes and drew his vision into his body. Under the control of his mind, the Q cyclone inside his abdomen began to spin at a high speed. Clusters of purple flame were thrown out. The purple flame seemed to be puzzled at suddenly getting kicked out. Once outside the cyclone, the flame formed a ball of fire. Just as this ball of fire attempted to crash back into the cyclone, a pale yellow Q energy came from the cyclone and encompassed the flame. Under Xavier's control, the yellow energy pulled on the fireball and began to move it along the Q pathways of the flame mantra. The purple flame did not like this. Almost as if it was sentient and in a state of danger, it began to attack the yellow energy. Each time they struck, a large amount of Q energy was burnt into nothingness. However, the energy came back as quickly as it was burnt. This was of course due to Xavier consuming the energy recovery pill just in time. As soon as the purple flame was dragged into the Q pathways, Xavier shivered. He began to sweat. His face was twitching. He did not expect that the pain would be so intense. Now take the path protection pill. Lau did not have to say this twice. Without hesitation, Xavier reached for one of the small bottles in front of him and put the pill inside his mouth. Once it entered his body, a warm and smooth energy overcame Xavier. It swiftly covered all the Q pathways. Although the layer of protection was thin, the effect was notable. Xavier's tension became less. The pain on his face disappeared. It was still uncomfortable, but at least not as painful. The only thing he had to make sure of was to keep consuming the energy recovery pills. The process of forcing the flame through the Q pathways consumed an insane amount of Q energy. Bearing Lau's words in his mind, Xavier paid close attention to the amount of Q energy he had. He did not dare to be careless. Once the flame had passed half of the Q paths, Xavier could sense that the feeling became more intense. Fear spread through his heart. He could not afford to lose control. Lau urged him to take the icy heart pill. Xavier pulled it out of the bottle and put it into his mouth. A feeling of ice left wherever the pill went on the way down his throat. This icy feeling gradually spread throughout his entire body. He could feel his skin crawl. The icy heart pill soothed his mind. Xavier's fear of losing control vanished. He continued to focus his mind and energy on the purple flame. That a thread of Q energy began to merge with the purple flame, though perhaps merging was the wrong term to describe it. Rather, the flame was being consumed by the Q energy. Xavier was both shocked and happy. This was a final confirmation to him that the Q method flame mantra really could evolve. The pale yellow Q energy transformed more and more into a pale purple. Moreover, on the surface of this energy was a faint flame. However, this flame did not cause any damage to Xavier's body. Xavier had to prevent himself from screaming out in joy. Unrestrained happiness filled his heart. After a few more minutes, the flame finally completed the circle. Once it was done, the rest of the Q energy shot back into the cyclone. With the Q energy entering the cyclone also began to change its color. By the end, all the energy in his body and cyclone was purple. As the cyclone slowed down, Xavier opened his eyes. A faint purple light was in them for a moment. He grinned at Lau. "Did I succeed?" Lau confirmed his suspicion. Indeed, you have succeeded. Xavier was about to laugh, but suddenly, the grin on his face dropped. He could feel the energy from all the air surrounding him flow into his body. More and more it filled him. Xavier's heart began to race. The feeling of energy was overwhelming him. "Master, what is going on?" he asked. Lao was unbothered. "Do not worry about that. Your dumb luck is helping you out once again. It seems you are finally breaking through to become a true master." Another breakthrough? Xavier was stunned. He completely forgot that he was close to becoming a true master. "Yes, prepare yourself. If you miss this chance, you might have to wait for another month before an opportunity like this arises," informed Lao. Xavier, not bothering to check how much his Q method had evolved, understood and took on his training pose once more. Once he used his inner vision, he could see that the surrounding energy that was rushed inside his body was wild and violent. He hastily directed the incoming energy through the Q pathways before forcing it into the Q cyclone. The scope of energy was terrifying Xavier. While he did his best to gain control of every thread of Q energy that was in him, it was impossible to keep control of every thread. It was too much for him. All Xavier could do was control as much as he could, and let the other energy flow around freely. This violent, uncontrolled energy did cause some pain, but it was nothing Xavier could not deal with. As he forced the refined energy from the Q pathways into his Q cyclone, it was as if he had thrown a boulder into a calm lake. The Q cyclone began to race at an incredible speed. It became faster and faster. Suddenly, a ferocious power exploded. Xavier was terrified. He had no idea what was happening. "Is this supposed to happen?" His body kept absorbing energy. Xavier had no idea what to do with it. He tried to gain as much control of the new energy as possible, ignoring the one he had forced into the raging Q cyclone. The cyclone devoured the energy like a black hole. Much of the violent Q energy entered the cyclone without passing the pathways. As Lao noticed this, he frowned. What is he doing? Letting violent energy into his Q cyclone like that? He wondered if he should interfere for a moment, but then shook his head. He wanted to observe this for another minute before interfering. Xavier's heart was racing as fast as the Q cyclone. He failed to control the unrestrained energy flooding his body. His Q pathways began to swell. Despite the protection he took earlier, they began to ache. "Fucking shit! Stop already!" Xavier screamed out. If his Q pathways would burst, he would lose all his power again, but this time, for good. Suddenly, the Q cyclone was shrouded by a purple flame. The more the cyclone spun, the more the purple flame grew. As the flame touched the surface of the cyclone, something strange happened. The flame suddenly rose. It tripled its size. In the blink of an eye, groups of uncontrolled energy were burnt, leaving only small droplets of liquid the size of a fingernail. Xavier was confused for a moment. Suddenly, he realized that the purple flame must have burnt all the impurities that he could not get rid of himself. It appeared that the flame had a mind of its own. The purified droplets of energy shot inside the Q cyclone. Slowly, the energy in the cyclone grew dense. This did not stop it. Xavier's body kept sucking in the energy in the air surrounding him. Lao, who kept a close eye on Xavier, relaxed. "It appears everything is under control now." He shook his head with a smile. Once the cyclone stopped absorbing the energy, Xavier opened his eyes. He was drenched in sweat. His breathing was heavy. With a questioning look, he stared at Lao. The old man beamed with pride. "Congratulations, you are now a true master." Within a year, Xavier had finally become a true master. He felt like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon. Becoming a true master meant that Xavier was now above the class that the majority of people within the continent were in. Although the rank of a true master was still among the lower ones, it was much stronger than a young master. Most importantly, Xavier was still a teenager. Becoming a true master at his age was a tremendous achievement. Xavier tightened his fist. The feeling of new energy overwhelmed him. It was flowing through every cell of his body. Purple energy surfaced his body. It formed a thin layer around him, a Q energy cloak. This was the sign of a true master. It was also one of the most practical skills of a true master. Only when someone reaches this rank would the Q energy be strong enough to form a cloak that could wrap itself around the entire body. Moreover, once someone reaches this rank, the cloak would be able to enhance someone's speed and defense. Xavier threw a few quick punches. He could feel how his strength increased. Lau waited for Xavier to calm down before asking, "Did you see what level the flame mantra evolved to? Middle or high hunter level?" Xavier closed his eyes to check. The energy in his body was a lot purer and more potent than before. The cyclone looked a bit smaller, but Xavier could tell that this was not bad. It just meant that the energy was so pure, the imperfections that were mixed in it before were now gone. Threads of purple energy moved from the cyclone. Following its flow, Xavier could see them enter the Q pathways. After a while, he opened his eyes. "The Q method is now on the rank of Hunter, middle level. It only evolved by 1 level," he replied. "Middle Hunter? Yes, that was expected." Lau was less disappointed than Xavier. "The evolution of the Q method does require the energy of a heavenly flame. This purple flame did not meet the requirements from the beginning. I'm not sure what you expected. You should be glad it did something at all. This could have backfired horribly, in more than one way. Besides, a middle hunter level is not too bad. It is still above your initial level, isn't it?" Xavier nodded with a bitter smile. "I guess you're right, and swallowing the purple flame was already difficult enough. I can't even imagine what it must be like to swallow a heavenly flame." Well, he had never dealt with a heavenly flame. He gained a newfound level of respect for it. He realized he might have underestimated how hard it would be to swallow a heavenly flame. Xavier shook his head, trying to get rid of the anxiety. "If you want some more good news, since you now are a true master, your stay in the mountain range of monsters will be over soon. Our training will continue in the Tag Desert. We should leave as soon as possible. There are only 8 more months before we need to head to the faction of the Misty Clouds," informed Lau. Xavier shivered. His eyes wandered into the far distance outside the cave. The sky was lit with stars. Without any light from any city nearby, there were a lot more stars than in any urban area. They formed a layer of sparkling light on the horizon. "I wonder what level she is at." "Don't worry. I won't be able to help you reach the rank of a She-Master, but being promoted by a few Q-stars should not be too difficult. Moreover, even if she had risen so much that her level far exceeds yours, you have accomplished a lot, and I don't say this lightly. There are not many I hold in such regard, not even the faction leader who is amongst the top 3 most powerful people within the Empire. Nevertheless, you should get some rest now. Tomorrow, we will leave the mountain range. I will warn you right now. The training there will be much harder and more dangerous than the training here. You should prepare yourself for it," Lau warned. Xavier smiled as he heard Lau's warning. "You are right. I have come very far. A lot further than I expected 3 years ago. I won't care what hardships you'll throw at me. I want to see how much further I can go." Lau laughed. "I am happy to see that your will has not been weakened during our training. Well done." Xavier blushed. "And I am happy to get out of this mountain range. Honestly, I am looking forward to the Tag Desert. My 2 older brothers should live there, somewhere. Dad mentioned the Grand Desert City. You think we will run into them?" Lau tilted his head left and right. "The desert is vast. Finding anyone would be difficult, but who knows? Maybe your dumb luck will help you run into them. I wouldn't be surprised." Lau was about to return to the ancient ring when he froze for a moment. He shook his head with a sigh. "You know, back when I was alive, I visited the Tag Desert because I heard of a heavenly flame that was supposed to be hidden there. Unfortunately, I did not find it." Lau did not pay any attention to Xavier's eyes as they widened, sparkling brighter than the stars outside. Instead, he went back to the ancient ring, not losing another word about it. A heavenly flame in the desert, he wondered. Xavier cleaned up the mess and put everything back inside the storage ring before leaving the cave. The heavenly flame Lau mentioned did not leave his mind this night. "I need to find it," he thought. He kept thinking about it as he made his way back to the shed. As he saw it from the distance, the light inside was lit. Outside the shed, he saw the doctor on a chair. She wore a white dress and was reading the poison book. As she heard Xavier's footsteps, she turned her eyes off the text and turned to Xavier. "Oh, you're finally back. Did you have any success in your training? I hope you're not going to be mad at me, but I already had dinner. You took so long and I got hungry, so... Oh well. There is still some for you in the pot, though. It should still be warm. I kept it over the fireplace," she said. A sense of melancholy overcame Xavier as he heard this. Knowing he will have to say goodbye, he knew he was going to miss her. Having a friend to come home to at the end of the day was a nice feeling. Her expression was gentle as she looked at Xavier. As Xavier noticed something, he frowned. He stepped up to her and brushed off a small amount of black powder that was next to her mouth. Xavier gave her a look but did not say anything. The doctor turned red. Though in the darkness, this was hard to see. She immediately turned her eyes away from Xavier. She felt unable to face any judgment he may have. However, the words Xavier said next were worse than any judging could have been. "I will have to leave tomorrow." The doctor was startled. After a moment of silence, she sighed. She knew this day would come. Xavier mentioned that he would leave about a month ago. This should not come as a surprise, and yet her heart sank. "I figured that this will happen. We have been here for a long time. Maybe it is time to leave for the both of us," she uttered. "Where will you go?" he asked. A moment of silence followed. The doctor broke it and forced a half-hearted smile. "I think I will go to the Empire of the Sun. It lies west of the Empire of the Heavens. There is the continent of the Sun. Perhaps I will roam around there," she replied. "The Empire of the Sun." Xavier laughed a bitter laugh. He heard a bit about the Empire of the Sun. According to some people, the number of poison masters within the Empire of the Sun exceeded any other empire or country. "All right, sounds like you're going to have a great time. For me, I will head to the Tag Desert. My training will continue there. I suppose that means goodbye," he added. He raised his head back to the stars, avoiding the sad look on the doctor's face. "I understand." She sounded as if she was in low spirits. "I hope you will be careful. Perhaps we won't see each other ever again," she sighed. Xavier wanted to say something. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Silently, he feared the same. All he could do was pat her shoulder. The doctor remained quiet. She did not tell Xavier that once the woeful poisonous body matured, it might cause her to go insane. In this state, she would lose all her senses. Secretly, she thought it would be better if they would never see each other again. She had no idea what she might do if she would run into Xavier, if she had no control over her mind. If she would do something irreversible, she knew she would never forgive herself. Without another word, she stood up and went into the shed. A moment later, she came back with a meticulously packaged sachet and a small crystal bottle. She handed it to Xavier, much to his confusion. "Inside this package is a powder that is referred to as Falling Soul. I know it might sound a bit frightening, but it is not too bad. It is the highest grade of powder I can create with my current skills. Be careful with it. I have added some things to it. Throw the powder on any enemy that is too challenging for you. It will be able to distract them and blind them for a moment," she informed. Xavier was about to open the sachet when the doctor slapped his hand. Xavier pulled it away. "Ow, what was that for?" he questioned. "Don't be such an idiot. The powder won't know if you are an enemy or not. If you open it, it will blind you, unless you take the antidote," she explained. "Oh, I see." Xavier sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. The doctor then pulled out another small bottle from her pocket and handed it to Xavier as well. "I have made this as well. Tag Desert is the territory of the snake people that live there under the rule of Queen Medusa. They are experts in using snake venom. This is an antidote pill that I have created. It won't be able to completely neutralize powerful snake venom, but it will be strong enough to take care of some weaker venoms." Xavier looked at the bottle. It was warm to the touch. He did not have the heart to tell her that this would not prove of much use to him, since he was traveling with an alchemist. Besides, he appreciated the thought nonetheless. Having someone so concerned about his safety almost made him tear up. "All right, these are all the things I can offer you. Don't try to rob me." The doctor clapped her hands with an awkward laugh. Xavier smiled. He moved his fingers, and a bottle from his storage ring appeared in his hand. I don't think you have ever seen pills that were refined by an alchemist in the town of beasts, have you? He asked. The doctor's eyes brightened. There are real medicinal pills in it? Like actual ones that have been refined by an alchemist? Don't pull my leg. Carelessly, Xavier threw the bottle over to the doctor. They are yours now, he answered. The doctor just managed to catch the crystal bottle. It almost dropped out of her hands twice. She gave Xavier an angry look. Be more careful. If there are real medicinal pills in it, they must be worth a fortune. The doctor could not finish her sentence. She opened the bottle and froze. A sweet medicine-like scent hit her nose. She let one of the 7 pills roll into her open hand and lifted it under her nose. The fragrance was better than anything she could have imagined. It was a lot more subtle and clean than anything she could have produced. All her poisons and potions could not hide that she was only a physician and not an alchemist. There was always the lingering scent of earth, herbs, or other ingredients on whatever she created. Being without a fire attribute, she could not create any fire herself, and ordinary fire could never refine the medicine as perfectly as the one of an alchemist would. Xavier bit his lips as he saw the doctor's sad face. I'm sorry. I did not want to hurt your feelings with these pills. They are called energy recovery pills. They can recover the Q energy after a fight. With the help of these pills, you can save yourself quite a bit of energy, he informed. The doctor looked up and gave an understanding nod. No wonder you lasted so long during the fight against wrong. She leaned back and raised her head to look at the stars. Xavier sat next to her and wrapped his arm around her. Together, they sat in silence, watching the night sky. The moon wandered across the sky. It was almost full. As they sat there in silence, both of them fell asleep. Once he felt more awake, he stood up and walked out of the shed. The sound of an eagle screeching made Xavier look up. There in the blue sky was the doctor's blue eagle. It was floating above the valley, screeching as if it was announcing its departure. Finally awake? The doctor's voice startled Xavier. Yeah. As he looked at her, he had to laugh. She was carrying 2 baskets full of ingredients. Despite her best effort to store as many of them as she could in her numerous bags and pockets, it was clear that it was way too much. The plants were piled up so high, they threatened to fall out of the baskets. Xavier walked up to her. Carefully, he helped her to put the 2 baskets onto the ground. He then retrieved a storage ring from his storage ring. He had 3 in total. To avoid getting robbed, he wore only one of them. With a smile, he placed the second storage ring onto the doctor's palm. Take this as a parting gift. It should be more convenient to store ingredients inside the storage ring than to have to carry them through the entire mountain range like that, he stated. The doctor stared at it for a moment before she put it on. Are you sure about that? I think these are rather expensive. Xavier nodded with a smile. Of course I am. She replied with a smile as well, and placed all her ingredients and baskets into the storage ring. Thank you. Are you going to take some herbs and ingredients as well? You won't find a place like this in the desert. Xavier laughed and waved her off. I already prepared everything 2 days ago. All right then, looks like we're ready to leave. She sighed and reached for her whistle. The blue eagle circled downwards. Its giant wings blew across the valley. The doctor climbed up on its back, and Xavier did the same. This will be the last time we will be flying together, the doctor reminded him. Looks like it. Xavier tried to push this thought out of his head. He stared at the shed that had become like a new home to him. The eagle flapped its wings, and they took off. Soon, the small shed disappeared far beneath them. They flew for a while. Xavier looked at the familiar mountains, like the one that was shaped like an old man with a beard near the shed. He recognized more mountains than he thought he would. There was a mountain that was close to where he met the bloodbath mercenaries The eagle flapped its wings. As they flew off, she waved after Xavier. He waved as well. A feeling of loneliness overcame him. The silence on the mountain peak only made this feeling worse. There were not as many birds singing as there were in the forest below, nor were there any animals or humans around. Xavier felt abandoned, even though he knew this would happen. He stood there for a while. The place he was at was nowhere near the town of monsters, yet it was not as abandoned as it appeared to be. Near the base of this mountain was a small city, and not too far from there was one of the bigger cities in the eastern province of the Empire of the Heavens. It was called Obsidian City. From everything that Xavier heard, this city should have been a lot larger than even Wutan City. He was curious to see if these rumors were true. Once Xavier collected himself, he secured the broadsword ruler on his back and made his way to the foot of the mountain. His current plan was to head to Obsidian City, and from there make his way to the Tag Desert. If he would go to the desert on foot, it would take him 4 to 5 months. However, he did not have so much time to waste. Even if he would use his wings, it would be impossible to cross such a distance quickly enough. Not to mention that it would be dangerous to fly across the open sky. Many people would try shooting him down, if either to challenge him or for fun. Xavier had no time to waste for any inconvenience. This was why he decided to search for a flying fleet from the Obsidian City towards the border of the Empire. As he reached the foot of the mountain, he took a short rest in the small city. He ignored the questioning and judgmental looks from the locals. They did not see many outsiders here. Most of the people knew each other and were related. After having something to eat and drink, Xavier hired a horse carriage to Obsidian City. Despite not being too far away from the city, the journey took all afternoon. The sun already began to set as he saw the city's skyline. Xavier, exhausted from his long journey, was suddenly wide awake as he marveled at the sight. There were enormous walls built around the city. He could see buildings rank high into the sky behind those walls. They were built of black rock. "First time in Obsidian City?" The carriage driver noticed Xavier's shocked expression. Hastily, Xavier nodded, making the carriage driver laugh. "Yeah, I could tell. You don't look like you're from around here. You know, many years ago, these walls got attacked by 2 warlords. They combined the powers from both their clans and all their strength to take these walls down. They threw punch after punch, both the warlords and their thousands of soldiers, but did no damage. The walls did not even shake." The man laughed a deep laugh. "Unbelievable, isn't it? I guarantee you, there is no safer place than Obsidian City in all the Empire," he added. Xavier was astonished. He was not sure if he could believe such a tale. 2 warlords and their entire clans could not shake these walls? That sounded like a work of fiction, though he had to admit, the walls were impressive. The closer the carriage got, the higher they seemed to grow. As the carriage was stopped, Xavier paid the tax to enter the city. The carriage then proceeded through a tunnel to enter through the wall. The tunnel seemed to have gone on for ages. He wondered how thick the walls must have been. Once the tunnel ended, Xavier was flooded with noises and bright lights. People were chatting and yelling. Vendors were trying to sell their things. Crowds were forming outside bars and restaurants, and thousands of people strolled through the countless streets and alleys. Xavier was overwhelmed by the sudden change of atmosphere. He was used to the quietness of the valley, and now being faced with so much noise, it made his head hurt and feel dizzy. Lau must have noticed because his voice echoed through Xavier's head. Not as loud as the other voices from all the people around him, but so close that he could hear it. "First, you should find a place for the night. I'm not sure if this city has any alchemist society, but if they do, it would be best to go and take the test to see if you can reach level 2, Lau suggested. "Alchemist society? Do you mean a place to meet with other alchemists? But wouldn't that mean I would expose my identity as an alchemist?" Xavier replied as he was done paying the man who drove the carriage and climbed out of it. Looking around, wherever he looked were people. Lau was at a loss for words. If it were not for the loud noises in the background, there would have been a long, awkward silence before Lau spoke up. "I never told you to hide your identity as an alchemist, did I?" Xavier was stunned. He thought about it for a moment until, "No, you did not. I think I just assumed so since you told me not to tell anyone about you and keep a low profile." There is nothing wrong with keeping a low profile, but part of being an alchemist is forming a network. You will never know when you need a helping hand. I remember when someone wanted my head when I was alive. They had a warlord, 3 high-level Q-masters, and 5 Q-masters. You want to know what happened next? Lau asked. Xavier sighed as Lau stopped at the most important part. What happened next? He asked. I used my spirit communication. You will learn about this later. Don't worry. What happened next? Well, I ended up calling 3 warlords, 8 high-level Q-masters, 12 Q-masters, and about 18 battle spirits. You can imagine the results. Where was I going with this? Oh, yes, of course. It won't hurt to mention that you're an alchemist now and then, he answered. All right, I understand. Then I will look to see if I can find an alchemist society first thing tomorrow morning, Xavier replied. Xavier did not spend much time this day looking around Obsidian City. Exhaustion spread through his body. His muscles were aching. All he wanted to do was find a room to stay in for a night, as soon as possible. Not to mention, the awful loud noises made his head spin. It irritated him. He did not have to search for long. Close to the wall was a house with a sign outside where "Rooms Available" was written. Xavier took a deep breath before entering it. It was not too bad inside. The inn looked clean, and the staff was nice. Xavier got the keys to his room, and immediately, as he entered, he let himself fall into the bed with a loud sigh. Lau manifested himself next to the bed with a chuckle. Go get some rest. We have a few long days ahead. Oh, and before I forget, maybe you should see if they have an auction house here. There should be one. It is an enormous city after all, much larger than when I was here the last time. If you find an auction house, look for a level 3 monster heart. Even though we haven't found any heavenly flame yet, it would be best to get all the preparation steps ready. Otherwise, you won't be able to consume the heavenly flame once we find it, which would be a shame. A level 3 monster heart? That is the last ingredient to refine the blood lotus pill, right? Xavier looked up at Lau from the bed. He nodded. The blood lotus pill is very important for this. It allows you to come into close contact without being burnt to a crisp. Without its protection, even a warlord would not dare to go near it. And while the blood lotus pill is needed to protect the outside of your body, the ice spirit fountain is needed to protect the inside of your body. The other thing we need is a bonding soul. This bonding soul can create a space in your body where you can store the heavenly flame. If you place the heavenly flame into your Q-cyclone without it, your Q-cyclone and all the energy in your body would be evaporated by the flame. Unfortunately, these bonding souls are exceedingly rare. They can only be found in the center of the storage stone. Storage stone is usually needed to create storage rings, and they are already very expensive. You can imagine how much the center of a storage stone might cost you. Xavier stared at Lau in disbelief. Why haven't you told me about the bonding soul and the ice spirit fountain until now? And what is an ice spirit fountain? Where should I even look for these things? Don't tell me you expect me to run into them at the auction house. Lau awkwardly shrugged. To be honest, I thought I did tell you. That was my bad. But you do know about it now, and that is everything that matters. Or not. Xavier gave him an angry glare, which was answer enough. Oh well. Lau waved it off, ignoring the glare. You should not worry too much about the bonding soul. I do have one with me. Back when I was searching for a heavenly flame, I got some in advance. So the only thing you need to get is the level 3 monster heart and the ice spirit fountain plant, he added. Xavier's shoulder dropped. I guess that makes it a bit easier. Where am I supposed to find the ice spirit fountain? Whatever that is. Lau shook his head. An ice spirit fountain is an item that will keep you protected. It can be found in extremely hot places and in extremely cold places, he informed. Extremely hot places? I understand why an item with such a name would be found in a cold place, but hot? That does not make much sense, does it? He asked. Things can go in reverse when pushed to the extreme, Lau replied, leaving Xavier as confused as he was before. Of course, if you were lucky, you might get it from the auction house or through someone else, but I'm not sure how high these chances are. After all, anyone with some knowledge would be able to tell how rare those things are, and would not be inclined to give it out willingly. And what if we fail to prepare all those things but find a heavenly flame? What do we do? Xavier questioned. Lau sighed. Then we run. Regardless of how hard a heavenly flame is to find, without these preparations, you will die before you can even touch the heavenly flame. But let's not think about this for too long. You should get some rest, and after finding the Alchemist Society, we should stop by an auction house. Hopefully, they might be able to aid us. Lau did not have to mention this twice. As soon as he vanished into the ancient ring, Xavier fell asleep. Lau let Xavier sleep until early the next morning. With the rising sun, Xavier awoke. He took a shower, got dressed, and walked down to the innkeeper. "Good morning," he greeted. "Good morning, young sir. I hope you slept well." The innkeeper was a gentleman with a rough appearance. He was at least 6 feet tall, and as Xavier saw him for the first time, he wondered if he was a retired mercenary. There were scars hidden beneath his beard and sleeves. All in all, he was a rather imposing figure, but he seemed nice enough. He was busy cleaning his counter, while Xavier walked down from his room. As Xavier walked up towards him, he reached for a glass to clean it. "Yes, I did, thank you. I hope I'm not bothering you, but I need to ask you something," replied Xavier. The innkeeper hummed without looking up from the glass he was cleaning. "What do you need to know?" "Where can I find the Alchemist Society?" Xavier asked. The innkeeper dropped the glass in shock. His small, half-closed eyes widened in shock and stared at Xavier. The Alchemist Society?" he stammered. Xavier bit his lips. He disregarded his earlier suspicion about the innkeeper being a retired mercenary. "Yes. Is there one?" Hastily, the man nodded and gave Xavier some directions. Xavier thanked him and walked out of the inn. Once outside, he shook his head and laughed. It looked like there was no exaggerating what everyone said. Alchemists are respected everywhere. Following the direction the innkeeper gave him, Xavier passed a couple of long streets. He roamed around for a while, looking through the windows of several shops he passed. Secretly, he was hoping he would run into either a level 3 monster heart or an ice spirit fountain. There were thousands of shops, so Xavier was rather optimistic. A good 2 hours later, he arrived at his destination. He raised his head, taking a good look at the enormous, majestic building that appeared in front of him. There was no mistaking it. Xavier had found the Alchemist Society. It had such a unique design, it would be hard to get it mixed up with anything else, even for an outsider like Xavier. The building was shaped in a way that resembled a cauldron. The windows appeared to be the fire outlets on that cauldron. Xavier's eyes fell onto a purple board outside the building. There were 2 words written in an ancient script. The words appeared almost blurry with a flickering glow. "Alchemist Society," Xavier mumbled. "Yeah, figured." He took a look around himself. Most of the people looked at the building with awe. Xavier also noticed that he had earned himself some confused glances as he was just standing there at the entrance, with the broadsword ruler on his back. He ignored the stares and walked with quick steps into the Alchemist Society. As soon as he set foot inside, he was stopped by 2 large men. They blocked his way off with their hands. "Kid, this is the Alchemist Society. If you want to enter, you need a recommendation letter from your master." "Recommendation letter?" Xavier whispered to Lau. His reply echoed through Xavier's mind. He sounded confused, too. I am not quite sure. Each country has its own alchemist societies and regulations. They differ. I hardly ever came to the Empire of the Heavens in the past, and the last time I was here was a few years ago, as you can imagine. I am afraid I am not familiar with their current rules." Xavier shook his head, unsure what to say. Suddenly, a sweet-smelling wind blew forwards. Xavier jumped aside, to make space for the person behind him. It was a girl that appeared to be in a rush. "Master, hurry up!" she exclaimed. Her master sighed. His eyes looked tired. "Why are you rushing me so early in the morning, Asa? That old man Anthony is probably still asleep." Hearing the name Anthony caught Xavier off guard. Xavier glanced at the master's chest. On it was a badge of a cauldron, with 4 silver waves. Xavier's eyes lit up. Level 4 alchemist. Amazing. The 2 men that blocked Xavier's way immediately moved for the girl. Xavier tilted his head to look at the girl in the purple dress close to him. She could not have been older than 20. Perhaps she was even younger than that. She appeared to be rather petite. While wearing an alchemist's apparel, She had no badge to show her level. Her long black hair was tied with a purple ribbon, and so long that it almost reached her knees. She must have noticed Xavier looking at her, because she turned her head around and took a look at him too. After seeing his ordinary apparel, and no sign of him being an alchemist, she threw him a glare filled with disdain, even though her master had taught her not to judge a book by its cover. After sizing Xavier up carefully, she could not sense anything special or good about him. As she withdrew her eyes from Xavier, she subtly shook her head. To her, he was just some passerby. The man that was following her walked past the guards. "You better don't embarrass me today, Asa. Otherwise, Anthony would make sure that I will never hear the end of it." The guards took deep, respectful bows as the man walked past them. "Grandmaster Talun." The old man smiled and nodded at them. Suddenly, his gaze fell on Xavier. He furrowed his brows for a moment. For some reason, he could feel that there was something odd about this young man. Grandmaster Talun was unable to pinpoint what exactly it was that threw him off about the young man. The girl Asa startled Grandmaster Talun by placing a hand on his shoulder and smiling softly at him. "Don't worry about that, Master. All I have to do is refine a pill. You think this would be a challenge for your disciple?" Grandmaster Talun gave her a smile and a pat on her shoulder, before taking a slight bow to Xavier and walking further inside the building. Asa raised an eyebrow as she saw this. She leaned towards Talun and whispered, "Master, why were you acting so respectful to that young man in the entrance? You would not bow to anyone like that for no reason, would you?" Talun hummed. "There was something about that guy that caught me off guard. I am not sure what it is, but I have a feeling that it would be best to be respectful to him." Asa did not understand. All she could do was shake her head and not overthink this as she followed her master deeper inside the building. The guards of the Alchemist Society looked at Xavier. "Have you found your teacher's recommendation letter? You can't stay at our entrance all day." They had dealt with people walking into the Alchemist Society without meeting the requirements before. This happened a lot of times. After all, everyone wanted to become an alchemist. Many people thought they could bribe their way inside or cheat in some other way. A lot of physicians would also try to get inside the society and start arguments that their medicine was as good as an alchemist's refined pills and potions. Having a young man without a letter of recommendation show up was nothing out of the ordinary for the guards. Xavier bit his lips. I'm afraid I don't have any letter of recommendation, but that young woman earlier did not show you any letter of recommendation either, and you allowed her to go inside." One of the guards shook his head. The other one laughed. "Don't tell me you have not heard of Grandmaster Talun. He is a level 4 alchemist. The young woman was Miss Asa, his prodigy. Only a fool would not let them pass. Are you sure you walked into the right building, kid?" The guards reached for their weapons. Xavier's mind was racing for a moment until he placed his hand with the palm facing upwards in front of him. On it, the purple flame arose. The guards stopped their attempt to unsheathe their weapons. With wide open eyes, they stared at the flame, and then at Xavier. The shock was in their eyes. "You can create a flame? That means you must be a level 4 alchemist," they sighed. The guards were, of course, no alchemists. Still, after guarding the Alchemist Society for a while, they gained some knowledge about alchemy. What shocked them was not to see the purple flame, but that the owner of the flame was such a young man. If Xavier had been in his 50s or 60s, the guards would not have been shocked at all. Xavier laughed awkwardly. "Oh, no, not at all. I don't think I'm on level 4 yet, but I would like to take the test to see what level I am on." He tried to play it down as he noticed the sudden attention on him. Not only did the guards' interest peak, but the other people entering and exiting the entrance hall grew curious as well. "Could I please enter so that I can take the test?" he asked. The guards exchanged a look. "Well, of course. We do apologize, sir." They took a deep bow and let Xavier pass. Only now did he realize that keeping a low profile did not give him much of an advantage here. He had neither an alchemist badge, nor could he show what level he was on. Xavier had no time to sulk about that. As soon as he entered the Alchemist Society, a fragrance of medicine and herbs hit his nose. There were not as many people inside as he expected. Only a handful of people were working inside. Some of them raised their heads and stared at the young man, with the odd broadsword ruler on his back. They worried for a moment, but then shook their heads before going back to work. No one would be dumb enough to start any trouble with a sword in a building that is filled with alchemists. Xavier walked around, looking for someone to ask about where he should go to take the test, as a young lady in a pale green dress hurried towards him from behind a counter. "Young sir, I believe this is your first time in the Obsidian City's Alchemist Society, or am I mistaken?" She seemed friendly, yet Xavier could see a spark of concern in her eyes as she looked at him. He gave her a polite smile and a bow. "Yes, it is my first time here. I hope to obtain an alchemist badge with my level on it." "Oh, so you are an alchemist. I should have thought so." The woman lost her polite smile. It took her a moment to find her composure again. She did not expect Xavier to be an alchemist. He seemed pretty young. Not to mention, he was not dressed like an alchemist either. "Then please tell me your name, age, and your master's name so that I can register you," she informed. "My name is Xavier. I am 19 years old, and my master's name—" Xavier hesitated for a bit. He could not hear Lao cry out to object, so he answered, "My master's name is Yao Lao." 19? That is very young." The woman laughed a little and went to a register on the counter. She searched for something as she picked up a pen, but suddenly froze. With furrowed brows, she looked up at Xavier. "Young sir, your master's name does not appear in our records." "I thought so," Xavier admitted. "He likes to live in isolation. Does he need to be in the register? If that's the case, then I think I'm just wasting my time here. I should get going. I still have some stuff to do." Xavier was about to say goodbye and leave when the woman stopped him. No, sir. Please wait. Although your master is not in the record, if you pass the test, you can still obtain a badge and enter the society," she explained. Xavier straightened up as he heard this. "Well, that is great news. Thank you," he exclaimed. "Don't worry about it." The woman waved it off. She did not want to upset or get rid of any potential new member of their alchemist society. Otherwise, he would end up signing up with a different alchemist society, which could become troublesome for them. "Please follow me. If you pass the test for the level you sign up for, you will get the badge for this level. I imagine you are here to test for level 1? Xavier shook his head as he followed her into a hallway. "No, level 2. The woman turned her head. Surprise was on her face. "Level 2? Really? As a 19-year-old? "Yes, is this any problem?" Xavier asked. She hastily shook her head. No, of course not. That's just... You appear to be very ambitious. Not that there is anything wrong with that. But you said you had never had an alchemist badge before, sir." "Please, just Xavier is fine." Xavier flinched whenever he heard anyone address him as master or sir. He was not used to it and did not want to get used to it. The woman seemed relieved as well. Since she was working amongst alchemists, it was better to be overly polite than rude. It could have been a death sentence to disrespect someone, even if it was by accident. "All right then, Xavier. Since this is your first time taking a test, I will have to ask you to pass the test for level 1 first. If you pass this test, you will be able to pass the test for level 2, and so on and so forth. I hope this is not too bothersome for you," she informed. Xavier waved it off, hiding the unhappiness in his heart. He was getting impatient, but that was not the woman's fault. "It's all right. Don't worry about it. I will take one test at a time then." The woman slowed down. She stopped in front of a massive door. 4 men guarded it. All of them were fully armed. Xavier took a closer look at them. All of them were level 9 young masters. One of them appeared to be close to breaking through to become a true master. The woman handed over Xavier's information that she had written down to one of the men. "Has the examination inside started?" she asked. "Not yet, but it is about to. Someone else wants to join?" The man that was close to breaking through to the next level took a look at Xavier. He did not see anything special about the kid in front of him. The man inspected the notes and pulled out a black wristband. Written on it was number 5. He wrapped it around Xavier's arm. "This is your number. Don't lose it." "Got it. Thank you," Xavier replied. "All right then. That's all the administration that was needed. Good luck, Xavier." The woman who led him there bid Xavier farewell and returned to her counter. Xavier also said goodbye. and waited until the guards opened the large door. The bright light that suddenly hit Xavier blinded him. Inside, there was a spacious hall. A large number of people were gathered inside. Many were chatting and laughing as they waited for their turn. It reminded Xavier of the time when he applied for Nanji Academy. Silently, he wondered how Sunny must have been doing there. Perhaps she had met someone else by now. Xavier shook this awful thought out of his head. I won't worry about that right now. I can't. He distracted himself by looking at the people who were in the hall. Much to his surprise, most of them were true alchemists, with badge and everything. He recognized Grandmaster Talon from earlier. Next to him was another old man. He seemed very out of place. Xavier quickly figured out it was Anthony, who was mentioned earlier. Where is he from? I have no idea. It is not impossible for outsiders to become alchemists, though. I figured you should know that already. Lau replied in Xavier's mind. Xavier agreed. He shouldn't have been as surprised by this as he was. As it turned out, Anthony was a level 4 alchemist as well. Additionally, he was also the chairman of Obsidian City's Alchemist Society. Xavier tore his eyes off him and looked around the hall. At the center of the hall were more than 10 stone tables. On those stone tables were many different instruments for refining pills and potions. In front of them, young, anxious-looking people tried their best to prepare themselves by getting familiar with the instruments and ingredients. Amongst them was the young woman from earlier named Asa. Grandmaster Anthony, where is Miss Yoon? The examination is about to start, asked Grandmaster Talon. Grandmaster Anthony waved him off. He did not look concerned. Don't worry about it. There are still 10 minutes left. This is her first time attending. She wants to be as prepared for the exam as possible. That is all. Grandmaster Talon was unsatisfied with this answer. If she isn't here in 10 minutes, you cannot delay the start for her, chairman or not. Anthony did not bother to reply. He turned around as he saw Xavier. He raised his eyebrows in surprise. Are you here to take the test, kid? Xavier nodded and raised his arm to show his wristband. Anthony pushed his lips together. How old are you? 19, Xavier answered. Oh? Not only Anthony was surprised to hear this. Grandmaster Talon also suddenly turned around and stared at him. I should have figured that you are an alchemist, Talon said as he walked over to Xavier. Normally I can tell immediately, but I had my doubts about you. You don't exactly look the part. Realizing how he must have sounded, he took an apologetic bow. I did not intend to be rude. Xavier brushed it off. He assumed that this was because Lau was nearby. Perhaps Lau made sure to conceal Xavier's talents and energy. Luckily, Talon did not bother to question this any further. Anthony had a frown on his face. He crossed his arms in front of him. 19, Grandmaster Talon. It appears this young man is younger than both our disciples. I have to admit, this is rather impressive. Talon shook his head. You should only praise him once he successfully passed the test. Besides, didn't Asa take the test for the first time when she was 19 as well? Anthony laughed. Yes, she did. That girl of yours showed up just to cause trouble. She nearly blew up her cauldron, though I do suppose that taking the test as a 19-year-old is difficult. Anthony was right. It was difficult for a 19-year-old to take this test. The reason for this was that one must be a young master to have the minimum amount of energy for the refining process. In addition, taking the first steps in alchemy would take at least 1 year's time, and this with the help of a master. This meant that by taking the test at the age of 19, one must have become a young master by the age of 17 or 18. Anthony struggled to believe that the young man in front of him had the necessary experience to pass the test. Oh, please, Anthony, don't act like Yoon didn't blow up a cauldron before. Talon replied nonchalantly. Xavier shook his head at the two bantering old men in front of him. He was about to say something, but a clear voice from behind interrupted. Master, I am sorry for being so late. Half of the men in the hall turned their heads to the spot behind Xavier. Xavier turned around as well. There he saw a young lady in an elegant silver dress walking inside the hall. Matching the silver dress, she had long silver hair, reaching down to her waist. It was not any ordinary gray, but silver, like fog under a full moon. It was an ethereal beauty. She ignored anyone staring at her, including Xavier, as she walked straight to her master. "Master Anthony." She took a deep, quick bow. "Ah, Miss Yun, you're finally here. Grandmaster Tulun over there had already began to tease me." Master Anthony laughed a bit, much to Tulun's annoyance. "Please, take a seat and get started." Yun walked to a free table. She made sure to keep her distance from Asa. As their eyes met, both of them tensed up. They did not seem to like each other. Asa did not bother to hide her disdain. "Try not to blow up the cauldron this time," she taunted. "At least I will be able to refine some actual pills instead of burning a year's worth of ingredients." Yun gave her a cold smile. Anthony shook his head. Afterward, he turned to Xavier. "Young man, why don't you go to the free spot over there between Miss Yun and Miss Asa? I am looking forward to seeing your performance. It's always exciting to see newcomers, and don't worry. If you fail the first time, many do. There's always a second chance." Xavier figured that by the sound of his words, Grandmaster Anthony did not have much faith that Xavier would pass. Grandmaster Tulun, on the other hand, seemed to be genuinely interested and less pessimistic as he watched Xavier sit down and take a look at the items in front of him. The requirement for a level 1 alchemist was that they must successfully refine a pill. The type of pill was randomly decided by the Alchemist Society. Xavier grabbed the piece of parchment on the table and read through it. The pill he had to refine for the test was a simple strength pill. As the name implied, it made whoever took it gain some extra strength for a limited time period. This type of pill was only a lower grade type, but for a newcomer, it was without a doubt a challenge. Xavier took a glance at Anthony and Tulun. Their eyes drifted between their disciples and Xavier. With a sigh, Xavier returned his attention to the items in front of him. On the table were all the ingredients needed for the strength pill. Only 3 sets of each ingredient were available. Whoever would burn all the ingredients was not allowed to ask for any more, and therefore failed the test. Next to the ingredients were a few jade bottles. Xavier assumed they were to store the refined pill. Gradually, Xavier calmed down. With his current abilities, this should not be too hard. His Q energy should be enough for this task, and additionally, with his purple flame, he clearly had an advantage. This lower-grade medicine did not give him any headaches. As the start signal was given, the participants immediately turned on their cauldrons. Xavier looked around to figure out what sort of pill the others had to refine. As he looked to the left and right, he could figure out what Asa and Yoon had to refine based on the ingredients they reached for. Xavier rolled his eyes. "Damn these old men, they really play favorites. These girls only have to refine a healing pill and a fire-freezing pill." Xavier raised his head. In front of them was a clock against the wall that was ticking. "We have a time limit? I guess that makes sense. Should have considered that earlier," he muttered. One by one, the cauldrons in the hall were lit up. Most of the flames were pale yellow. Asa and Yun had flames that were slightly darker in color, so they must have been on a higher level. Xavier kept looking around. He felt lost. Part of him wished he had asked Lao how to act in such a situation. So far, he had never met any alchemists. Now there was a hall full of them, and many kept staring at him. He felt very out of place. The thought of so many people watching him while refining a pill caused his anxiety to grow as well. He sighed. To his luck, as soon as the cauldrons were lit, a sort of foggy barrier appeared between the contestants. These barriers provided at least some privacy when refining the pills. He could only see the silhouettes of the others in muted colors. Some of the tension in Xavier's body left him. Grandmaster Anthony gave Grandmaster Tulun a skeptical look. "What is that kid doing?" Grandmaster Tulun was a little puzzled as well. "I have no idea. Could it be possible that this kid doesn't even know how to start a cauldron? What sort of comedy is this?" Anthony cleared his throat. He called one of his subordinates over. "Does he have a letter of recommendation from someone that is qualified as a master?" The subordinate checked through the files he was handed. "He does not seem to have a letter of recommendation. However, he did mention that his teacher's name is called Yao Lao." "Yao Lao?" Anthony blinked a few times and eyed Tulun. "Have you ever heard this name?" Talon rubbed his chin, thinking for a while. Eventually, he shook his head. Yao Lao, no. I have been working as an alchemist within this empire for decades, but never heard of someone with that name. Anthony's expression grew bitter. Never mind, we will check for more details once the test is over. It looks like the kid is trying to cheat his way into the Alchemist Society. Does he really think this will work? He stated. One could not blame Anthony for being mad. After all, he was the one in charge of the Alchemist Society in Obsidian City. If news spread, they would become a laughingstock amongst the other societies. No one would take an Alchemist Society seriously if a 19-year-old kid could trick them into letting him enter. The murmuring also got Yun and Ace's attention. They both looked at the young man that was sitting between them. Xavier did not notice how many people were staring at him. He was too focused on the cauldron. Sweat formed on his forehead. All right then, they won't kick me out for using a purple flame, will they? I'm sure it will be fine. It's not a crime, he thought. Xavier took a deep breath, causing his Q energy to rush forth. He focused his vision on the energy, following its flow. Then he placed his palm onto the fire outlet of his cauldron and a purple flame arose within his cauldron. Under Xavier's control, it flickered happily within the cauldron before calming down. Meanwhile, Anthony reached for his cup of tea and was about to take a sip when he saw the purple flame in Xavier's cauldron. His eyes widened. With loud coughing, he choked on his tea. Much of it landed on his clothes, but Anthony did not pay this any mind. He was trembling. A purple flame? Is this a heavenly flame? No, it can't be. The entire hall stopped any chatting and whispering. Numerous people gasped. Even the last eyes that were not staring at Xavier turned to him. They could not see all the details since the foggy barrier blocked off most of the sight, but there was a clear purple light where the fire inside the cauldron should be. This was clearly not any ordinary flame. That's not a heavenly flame, is it? Grandmaster Anthony asked again. Grandmaster Talon shook his head. Doesn't look like it, not to mention that with this kid's current strength, there is no way for him to control a heavenly flame with such ease. Grandmaster Anthony hummed in agreement. Indeed. But how does it come that the flame is purple? I don't understand. No wonder he wanted to take the test at such a young age. He must have some knowledge of alchemy. Judging by the flame, he must be at least a level 5 young master. Terrifying. Grandmaster Talon nodded. His face did not conceal how impressed he was. I could tell there was something odd about that kid as I met him in the entrance hall. How surprising to have him hide his talent under my nose. This makes me wonder what sort of teacher he has. I wish I could meet him. Compared to such an outstanding student, Asa and Yun's talents are hardly remarkable, he praised. Of course, Grandmaster Anthony's desire to meet this mysterious teacher was also growing. He went over to his subordinate and reached for his shoulder as he whispered, Circulate a message to all the other cities' alchemist societies. Tell them to check their records for any high-level alchemist named Yao Lao. Someone has to know him. The subordinate took a respectful bow and snuck out of the hall. In the corner, Grandmaster Talon observed Anthony. With a sigh, he shifted his gaze toward Xavier. Although he may be able to control such a unique flame, refining a pill is not only dependent on the flame. The soul performance and ingredients are more important than that. I wonder how this will go. Grandmaster Anthony knew this as well. He did not continue to speak. With great interest, he kept watching the young man, seeing how silent and invested the 2 level 4 alchemists were in Xavier's doing. Most other people present shifted their attention toward Xavier too. He kept looking through the ingredients on the table in front of him. He picked up a few and placed them in the cauldron. Under the suppression of his soul performance, the purple flame was acting like a docile lamb. In a gentle manner, it wrapped itself around the ingredients. Slowly, their essences came forth. Under this gentle refining, the initial shape of the strength pill began to form within the cauldron. He was so focused that he did not notice how Yun and Asa were staring at him. Yun's eyes were sparkling in awe. Meanwhile, Asa came to regret acting like a brat earlier. In the way Xavier handled this mysterious purple flame, she could see that he was more than experienced as an alchemist. She could tell by how Xavier treated the purple flame that he was able to keep it under control, as if it was second nature to him. With a bitter smile, She realized that her master was right. She should have been more respectful.